forward to this segment, welcoming Dr. Joe Dispenza to BT. Thanks for being here.
Happy to be with you guys.
We've got great threads on Facebook, which we'll touch on and probably discuss ongoing even after the show. It's such a fascinating topic. The book is called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself, How to Lose Your Mind and Create a New One. And just sitting here in the commercial break, Riaz, you asked such a great question of Dr. Joe. How did you get into this? How did you start?
Well, I was a 24-year-old kid in Southern California. I was a triathlete, and I got run over by a truck in a race, and I wound up breaking 6 bones in my back, and I had bone fragments on my spinal cord. And the prognosis was that I was never supposed to walk again, and the 4 surgeons in Southern California talked about a radical surgery called the Harrington Rod Surgery. And it was a turning point in my life because I had to decide if I was going to take the conventional route and have the surgery and probably live on addictive medications for the rest of my life and be handicapped, or if I was going to try something different and see if I could actually begin to make some changes internally. And so that led to a very, very quick recovery for myself, and then I started studying spontaneous remissions from disease. I went to 17 different countries, people diagnosed with cancer and diabetes and high blood pressure, MS, lupus, and they were treating conventionally and unconventionally, and they were staying the same or getting worse, and all of a sudden they started getting better. So I wanted to find out what the cause was that was producing that effect. So I found some commonalities, and then that led me to seeing if I could reproduce it. In other words, if we know the science behind this, then we should be able to reproduce it, and anything that's reproducible in science is a trend. So in the last 3 or 4 years, we're able to see that we can make internal changes in people and measure their effects in health and in their life.
And that's the vital point of your book and your presentations, this idea of change. Our viewers have chimed in about the habits they have. It's very personal, but why is change so difficult for the average person?
Well, change, you know, you have the old self that's made up of how you think, how you act, and how you feel. That's your personality. Then there's the new self, which is new thoughts, new behaviors, and new emotions. And when you decide to leave this familiar zone of the old self, there's a void. Because you're not going to be thinking the same way, you're not going to be making the same choices, and the hardest part of change is not making the same choices you did the day before, because the same thought leads to the same choice leads to the same behavior leads to the same experience, and the same experience produces the same emotion, and that same familiar emotion drives the same thought. That's a personality. So when you step out from the known into the unknown, you don't feel like yourself any longer. There's an alteration in your biological chemistry. And all of a sudden, in that unknown, you can't predict your suffering, you can't predict your pain, you can't predict your stress. And then most people in that unknown return back to the familiar feeling. So they do the same thing that creates the same experience, that reaffirms the same emotion. And they say, this feels right. But what it really feels is familiar. Right. So crossing the bridge of change, crossing that river, is stepping out into that that state of uncomfortability. And when you begin to realize that that is the magical place where creation happens, you'll cross the river of change.
So how do you advise somebody who is so entrenched and ingrained in that comfort zone to migrate across to that new location? Like when you're right here and about to change, like what is that?
What is that? Well, it's really interesting. I'll answer it on 2 levels. First level is most people wait for crisis, they wait for trauma, they wait for disease, diagnosis, loss, catastrophe to really make a choice to change. In other words, you reach a lower denominator and you say, I can't go on like this any longer. And you begin to look at how you're thinking. You begin to pay attention to how you're feeling. You begin to notice your behaviors. And you make a decision with firm intention. And that decision with firm intention has an amplitude of energy that becomes greater than the habit. So then my message is, why wait? You can learn and change in a state of pain and suffering, or you can learn and change in a state of joy and inspiration. Stepping out into the unknown, stepping outside of your familiar self, requires some important keys. Having an intention of what you want. In other words, intention is an ongoing direction to be healthy, to be wealthy, to be in love, to be a leader, to be a manager. It's a state of being. If you write down your intention, you're telling your brain that you mean business. The research shows in the United States, less than 2% of the people write down their goals and their intentions. The people who write them down, 80% of them accomplish their goals because they're reminding themselves of what their future can be like. Now, the hardest part of all of this, besides making a different choice, is making the time for your precious self to sit down for a few moments and decide on what you want. Once you have that intention, you need to have a sponsoring thought. If you want to be healthy or you want to be wealthy, there's a reason why. List those reasons. If you want to be wealthy, what you really want is freedom. If you want to be healthy, what you really want is vitality and to look good and to feel good and express life. Once you list those sponsoring thoughts, now you're driving the fuel of your direction. And when you begin to list those thoughts, you're giving your body a taste emotionally of what that future can be like.
What I can say I want right now is at least 10 more minutes with you, but we don't have that. Unfortunately, you're going to be
stay.
We're going to be at Unity Church. There's a presentation that you are giving. This is really fascinating stuff. I'm all about this idea of writing down goals and having intent. So
that's a free workshop. You just have to sign up, right?
Yeah, sign up on the website, drjoedispenza.com, correct?
Yeah. We'll be here on the 19th of January, this Saturday. Whole day event. We'll give people the tools to make necessary changes in their life.
Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself is the name of the book. Pick it up. It's a great tool. Doctor, thanks for coming in and sharing these insights. This was fascinating.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel change. No, I do. It's the bridge it's the driving force. Knowing what's behind it, the inspiration.
Jump on it on that workshop.